And also, it's not good, so don't buy it for anyone. That's what I would say. There's not very much left. That's not good. Hey besties, how are we? Are we well? I hope we're well. We better be well. Um, this is the book. Hopefully that wasn't really loud. I don't really know how to do microphone things. This is the book we're gonna talk about. I was gonna say this book we're gonna read, but I have already read it. And it's not very good. It's really quite bad. I don't understand why everyone has read it, why everyone's so into it. It doesn't even have the source. Like, it doesn't even have, you know, like the ridiculous, almost Wattpad-y, Twilight ridiculousness that makes it kind of insatiable. It's literally not even that. It's disappointing. Because I wanted it to be that. That's what I was, like, ready for. I was like, I'm going into this with my eyes open and I want to be delivered a kind of Sarah J Maas experience. Not that I've read any Sarah J Maas's in a long time, but she knows how to deliver in a very particular way. And this wasn't that. This book was not good. We gotta settle in. Good news, guys. I got my new big cup. It's probably why I need, because I'm gonna choke. Anyway, choking. New big cup. I already had a Stanley, but I had a small one, which was purple, which I did really enjoy. You can't see it. And it was purple and it was very beautiful, but it was too small because I bought it last year and you couldn't buy these in England. You had to ship it from America, which I didn't realise when I bought it and I felt really bad about. But then it was already on its way. And then Hermes kept like sending me pictures of it outside my front door and like not delivering it, and it was a whole thing. It was quite devastating. A lot of people are very aware of the Stanley issue from November 2022. But they sell them in England now. Yeah, I'm just really bad at consuming any liquid, so I do have water in here right now, but normally I have hot squash. And if you're not into hot squash, you gotta get into hot squash. Normally there's a whole lot of peach flavoured squash in here, and it's normally like a good warm, like warmer than lukewarm temperature, and it is that temperature or however long you need it to be, which is perfect. I really recommend it. I'd so recommend it in the winter. I'm talking, this is not big cup review. This is a book review. Anyway, some non-spoiler things before we start. When I wanted to buy this in person, I was really craving going to Waterstones, and I didn't have anything else that I was particularly wanted to buy and knew that I wanted to be like, I want to go and I want to spend 15 to 20 pounds on a hardback book that I know I really want to read. And unfortunately it was this one, which was kind of fine. I feel like it's satisfied in that it's a big hardback book that does the job in a lot of ways. But I thought it was going to be more silly and more fun than it is. And like, it is silly, but not in the way that we enjoy. So I feel like my first red flag was that Mary E. Pearson has blurbed it. And she wrote the Kiss of Deception series. And I really liked the first one. I even actually have a review from when I was like, must have been like 16, maybe. Of, maybe, how old was I? No one cares, but I want to look at it now. Let's have a look. So I reviewed the last book when it came out, and I was really disappointed and I thought it was so shit. It's from 6 years ago. So I was like 18. Cute. But that one was shit too. So that was my first. I don't know who the other people are who blurbed it. But also, I'm not gonna lie, this is like, this production is saying we believe in it. People are gonna buy it. And you know what? They're right. I went and I bought it. But I did think this is kind of like, I don't know, it's giving American. It's giving American, it's giving, I don't know, it's giving Percy Jackson adjacent. I love Percy Jackson, but it's not giving serious fantasy, maybe is what I feel. And it's true. It's not. So, some non-spoiler thoughts. If you're debating reading it, because you think it's going to be silly and fun and like a delicious Wattpad way, it's not. It's not delivering on that, I would say. The author is actually, like, or has been predominantly writing romance novels, and you can definitely tell. And also, this is not a YA book. I thought it was a YA book. It's not. It has, like, romance novel level sex in it, rather than, like, YA vibe. Because also, it's not even well written enough for it to be, it doesn't even feel that scandalous. It just feels like you're reading, like, way too much detail about two people having sex that you don't really care about. It's just like, oh, okay. So, don't read it if you, or like, if you're like, I'm gonna get this for my 14-year-old sister. Maybe don't, because yeah, it's got a lot of, it's quite explicit, which is not really a word I would love to use, but it just feels explicit because it's not very well written, so it's just like, ugh. And also, it's not good, so don't buy it for anyone. That's what I would say. Okay, I would say if you want it, because it seems like it's going to be a kind of good fantasy vibe, it's not. It's, I would say the biggest vibe is military, but like not even in like an old kind of way, not like in like a big historical traditional kind of way. It's kind of, it just feels a bit like somebody knows about the military and then makes that like set up, but then it's also not even strict like the military. It doesn't even have like camaraderie feelings. Like it's really just like set up as like an army vibe, but not even in like a fun way. You know, like not even like a, it's not giving the Iliad or I don't know, there are like lots of like military people in fantasy stories and it's not giving any of that. It's not. I think I'm going to talk about actual stuff about it now, so if you don't want to know, you must leave. Okay, where to begin? I'm going to take my notes out instead. Yeah, so my first note on the page is that it's poorly written, because it is. It's poorly written in the sense that sentence by sentence it's bad, it's bad structurally, it's bad in character, in plot, in vibe. There is, I think the biggest crime of this book is there is no atmosphere. Like, nothing is happening. Like, you don't feel like you're anywhere. Like, it's genuinely mostly dialogue, and like thoughts, and like there's no description of anything. And like, it's given that it's a fantasy realm, like, you'd think that there would be some discussion of the flora and fauna and maybe like some mountains or some like, even just like, what kind of room are you in? Like, you know, there's none of that. You're just kind of talk. You know how like when you read fanfiction, you're just kind of talking heads in a location, but if it's fanfiction and it's at Hogwarts, you're like, got it, they're at Hogwarts. Don't need it, all that fill-in, you know what I mean? We're not here for that. Whereas like, this is your own fantasy world, it should have some kind of description. Like, the longest description and first description we get of anything, really, is of the love interest. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I was like, you've got me. You've got me! Because, you know why? Because he's got onyx black eyes, and he's got gold flecks in them, even though, who has eyes like that? Unless they're literally, I don't know, a mountain lion or something. Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I was like, ooh, this description, we're gonna get the classic. We're gonna get what we want. Because, like, let's listen. He's tall, with wind-blown black hair and dark brows. The line of his jaw is strong and covered by warm, tawny skin and dark stubble, and when he folds his arms across his torso, the muscles in his chest and arms ripple, moving in a way that makes me swallow. And his eyes. His eyes are the shade of gold-flecked onyx. The contrast is startling, jaw-dropping even. Everything about him is. That doesn't make any sense. It's a badly written sentence. Anyway, sorry. His features are so harsh that they look carved, and yet they're astonishingly perfect, like an artist worked a lifetime sculpting him, and at least a year of that was spent on his mouth. He's the most exquisite man I've ever seen. And living in the War College means I've seen a lot of men. And then it continues. Even the diagonal scar that bisects his left eyebrow and marks the top of the corner of his cheek only makes him hotter. Flaming hot, scorching hot. Gets you into trouble and you like a level of hot. Suddenly I can't remember exactly why Mira told me not to fuck around outside my year group. So at first I was like, maybe we're gonna have, you know, classic fantasy. He's maybe the most beautiful man that we've ever seen, and he's the best and the most brilliant, and he's so broody and he's so mean. And I was like, okay, we can do this. Let's do it. You know what? I'm here for it. But it's not delivered. It's not delivered. So I think one of the saddest parts is that this really could have just carried on the relationship. But essentially, they go on and on about how, you know, Violet is the daughter of not the general, a commander, I don't know, somebody high up who's in charge of the place they're going. And, you know, everyone's like, oh my god, he's gonna kill her the first chance he gets because he is the son of, I don't know if it's a traitor or a rebel, but some sort of political rival situation, and he's also forced to go into this military situation where you learn to be a dragon rider. And so that's happening. That's that's happening. And he's there, and he is also a bit like, I'm gonna kill you the first chance I get. And then, he doesn't. He really has a really good chance really early on, and for no reason, he lets her go. So he gets caught meeting in a group of more than 3 of other rebel/traitors children who have been forced into this academy, which is a bit like interesting because the children of the I want to say antagonists, but it's not really what I mean. I know the political rivals of a conquered nation basically are not allowed to gather in a group, and this is not really explored because like I just feel like I think there's a level of like at the beginning you'll go like, oh, maybe the conquering nation / rival nation, you know, who's won the war, maybe they're shit, maybe they're bad people, but we're not investigating that in a big way. And then I'm like, we're immediately met with like a really weird perspective on like essentially children meeting. They're all like around 20. And essentially it's punishable by death, I think, or at the very least it's a very serious crime. And it makes me feel weird, because I just feel like it's not really interrogated very well at all. Obviously, ultimately, that's, you know, because this is a non-spoiler bit, you know, at the end, we're going to join the rebel cause, and it's a lot more complicated than we thought. But I didn't love it. It felt weird. It felt bad. It felt, like, she's like, well, if they're the traitors' children, I guess they can't gather, and it's like, what? Also, because, like, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm gonna Google this, and I'm maybe gonna cut it out if I'm wrong, but, like, isn't it, like, a war crime to, like, punish the children of, the people, like, you know, like, your political rivals? Isn't that a war crime? I feel like it, I feel like it's against the Geneva Convention. It feels like a really big, bad thing that shouldn't be allowed to exist. And it's really not dealt with. Also, because, like, she's not even a bit like, oh, it seems a bit harsh when you see people in front of you. She's a bit like, yeah, seems not ideal. And she's up in a tree, obviously, at this point, and she's listening in. And then he finds her when everybody else leaves. Golden opportunity to fucking kill her if you wanted to. Golden opportunity! She's caught you doing terrorism, maybe. Like, these feel like weird anti-terrorism, whatever laws. Like, she's found you committing a really big crime, and you're just like, I'm gonna let her go. Because she said she's not gonna tell anyone. He doesn't even threaten her enough. Like, what? So, that was dumb. That was extremely dumb. Especially also because I was like, he's obviously not going to kill her. I also obviously know that, like, he's the love interest. I mean, you couldn't really get past it with that description. But we know that he's the love interest, and we know that he's going to let her go. But, like, at the very least, there should be some sort of... It would have made more sense, like, thematically, or, like, within the story, in terms of the narrative, if it had been Dane, because obviously Dane's her friend from home, she knows him, she's gonna let him go, she's not, you know, all of that stuff. Whereas, like, this guy who you see as the son of a particular guy, Fen, is it Fen Ryerson? I don't know. He's that guy's son, and you're against him because your mum's against him, and the fucking country's against him. And you catch him doing something extremely illegal, and you're just like, oh, yeah, and he's like, okay, bye. Don't worry, I'm not gonna kill you, even though now will be a really good time with a lot of reason, and it would make a lot more sense for him to be so fearsome. It would make a lot more sense for him to be so, you know, the big bad. You know what I mean? Like, it was so stupid. He also then starts taking to calling her violence, which is so stupid. Like, I can't. Ugh, it's so dumb. Hate it. Hate it. You know why? Because she's not violent for a start. It's also, like, it becomes, like, a weird, genuine nickname. Like, he'll call her that when he feels, like, emotional or, like, is worried about her, which is so stupid. I just think it's so dumb. It just feels like, brainstorming on Tumblr levels of, like, writing. It's like, oh, he's gonna call her name's Violet, so it's violence. I'm like, shut up. Write better stuff. Come on. Ugh. Okay. I'll go back and whatever the biggest crime that I said it was, it's this. The biggest crime that this woman has committed in writing this book is that it is not an enemies to lovers, okay? It's literally the most mismanaged, pussy version of an enemies to lovers. Like, I need them to be enemies, not just they don't like each other, or like they're supposed to be enemies because their parents are enemies, or political rivals, or whatever. Like, they're not enemies, they don't hate each other, they're just like, oh, he's gonna try and kill you, and you're like, oh, don't try and kill me. That's it. Which is so stupid, it's so disappointing. Also because I feel like it came out of nowhere when they started fucking, or like when they first make out on the first time. Like, I felt like it, I was like, oh, we're doing this now? And also because it was really weird, because it was like, obviously the dragons, they have like a kinship with the dragons, and when the dragons are horny, they're horny, which, you know what, I don't object to. It's a fantasy book, it could be stupid like that. But it's also funny because I saw somebody point out that they don't experience like hunger or like anything else, but so she obviously has to go and find him, and obviously their dragons are mated. I feel like I've skipped over things, but anyway, we'll circle back. But yeah, their dragons are mated, so they're like, oh, then they make out, and then he makes quite a strong point, being like, oh, it's not you. Like, before they make out, he's like, well, it's not you who's feeling it, it's the dragon, and it's not fair for anyone to have sex with you while you're in this condition. And then obviously they proceed to make out for like several pages. Like, do you think you're above it because it's your dragon, you feel it too, and you're both like, but it's not. But this is my point about atmosphere, is that you don't get the impression that they're both under some heady spell, and it's like, oh my god, what are we even doing? It's just a bit like using this opportunity to have sex with this man who's hot. I don't care. It's boring. Yes, and then obviously there's like an extended scene where they have sex. And then my least favourite thing about it is that, okay, fine, if you wanted them to have sex before they're in love, fine. But like, then they're immediately disgustingly in love. Like, it makes no sense because they haven't built any kind of relationship, really. Like, they just kind of fight and train together. And it's not even intimate because, like, I don't know, I'm thinking Vampire Academy, I'm thinking Mortal Instruments, for this kind of scene where it's like you're doing like a prolonged physical activity with this other person, and then like you get all close and all that stuff, fine. But like, it's not even that. It's just so badly done, and it fucking stresses me out. I completely forgot about this, but when I got to the sex scene, I really had to like take a moment to come and chat to you, because I was like, I need someone else to experience this with me, because it was fucking me up. It made me feel weird. But I'll play it for you now, and then this will be me in the future. No, it's in the past. I don't know. We're not good at this. Hello. I wasn't planning on doing anything like this for this review. However, we have to intercede because I'm on page 376. The word clit is in this book, and I was entirely unprepared for it. Like, but also the word slickened core. I didn't think that romantasy meant this, but now I'm maybe seeing what that actually means. In my mind, a romantasy was going to be like, Shatami, where it's just kind of not that heavy on the fantasy and maybe stronger on the romance plot line. Whereas this is romantasy, whereas it's fantasy, but it has the level of sex as a romance book. I was unprepared, and maybe that's my fault, I don't know. But I feel like I'm in shock. This book makes me feel so prudy, but in such a weird way, because I'm not prudy, but I think it's just the way it's talking about sex is upsetting to me. I'm sure I will get into it, or have already been into it more in this review. But I feel like I needed to tell someone about this. No one's here. No one's in my house for me to talk about this with. But like, this is crazy. I'm back, only just to say that, of fucking course, she takes the magical pill, like the magical version of the pill, as they all do. Despite that never coming up, never having an effect on her body or anything. But I'm not gonna lie, I am torn, because sometimes I do think that fantasy should be a place where women can imagine that they are on some sort of contraception that doesn't entirely ruin their life. But it does, I don't know, it's just kind of annoying. But this sex is so, it's making me say ew. It's grim. I'm not gonna lie. My god, okay. So when she goes out to get the dragon, I'm like, you're gonna get the biggest one. We know you're gonna get the biggest dragon and the best one. We know it. It's just obviously what's gonna happen, and that's okay. But I think what I don't like about this kind of story, which is like maybe the most basic of fantasy stories and not fleshed out well at all, is that you have to take it seriously. Like, it has to take itself seriously. It has to be like, I can't believe that I've got the biggest dragon. How could this happen? Whereas it was a bit like, yeah, oh my god, I got the biggest dragon. And I also got 2. It's actually because I'm really special. So. Like, come on! I'm like, I know exactly how you need to deliver the story if it's gonna be this. And you're not even doing that. Like, you have to. So stupid. And obviously, so, biggest dragon, best dragon, hasn't mated, not mated, ew, hasn't, like, bonded with a person in hundreds of years, obviously. I'm like, okay, great. And she's obviously gonna get with it. And obviously he's mated with Xaden's, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, fine. It's not a problem. Fine. And then obviously, at the very least, the one thing that she can't do very well is that she's always falling off because she's just shit at riding a dragon. Cool. Like that. We do love, like, she is basically a Mary Sue, and that's her one thing that she can't do. And also because I feel like if this is supposed to be a love triangle, it didn't succeed. Because Dane is not, like, they kiss at some point, and he's giving Gale Hawthorne, he's giving Mal, he's just giving lame friend you know from home who you thought you fancied until you met anybody else in the world. So and he's also a bit the worst because he's always like, oh, Violet, you can't do it, you won't cope, you're not gonna make it, you have to stay home, which obviously we do hate. And also his maybe one character trait is that he cares about the rules. That's it. He doesn't exist any further than that as a person. And neither does Xaden, really. I can't tell you one thing about him. He doesn't exist, really. Like, Violet also is, like, what? Kind of stubborn. She thought she was going to be a scribe. She's not a scribe. Then she occasionally, like, repeats facts and things, but, like, the way that her perspective is not in any way affected by the fact that she was going to be a scribe and all this stuff. So it's just like, okay. No one's real, and then also, like, we haven't even managed to drum up any kind of tension of any kind. Plot, romance, nothing. Also, because all the other characters, they're also so nothingly. They simply have a name. That's it. And, like, Rhiannon in my head is like, she's maybe bi or a lesbian, and she's friends with Violet. That's it. She's got a dragon, I think. Sorry, got interrupted, because we had a man at the door, who then stayed in the rest of the house, and has since left. But anyway, what were we talking about? What were we saying? I think the angle's all wrong. What's going on? We don't know. Quite often a fantasy story will select another language, like Italian, or Spanish, or Russian, but this she just doesn't. Like, I think lots of the dragons, use Gaelic names, but I'm not super sure about that. But, like, all the rest of it, like, it's just so American. Like, it's so weird. I don't know whether it's just, like, an only American thing, but, like, not being able to detect that these things don't line up, or, like, because in English we obviously have French, Spanish, Nordic, like, so many kinds of words from so many different places, like, as a language, but you want to have people called, like, Mira, and also Violet, which is a flower, and, like, but also Xaden with an X, and Ryerson, and, like, all these things where it just doesn't really add up. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. It's not good. And I think this also really speaks to, like, one of the big problems of this book, which is that it has no culture. Like, it has no cultural identity whatsoever. So, like, it doesn't have any, like, it doesn't bring anything to the surface about, like, religion, or, like, ways of life, or, I don't know, just, like, because I don't mean that in, like, a tick box sense, where it's like, oh, your fantasy realm should have religions. But, like, it should, because people have religion. There are, like, cultural movements, like a feeling of society and, like, I don't know, any sort of culture, I suppose. Like, I really can't think of a better way to say it, but, like, it's so weird that, like, there's not even really, like, anything happening with the dragons. Like, it's not even like a culture of this human-dragon symbiotic relationship. It's more like the dragons are very powerful, very clever, ancient, and yet for some reason they do want to have some sort of connection with humans. Or they, like, will do stuff with humans to fight in human wars. Why do they want to do that? Doesn't really make sense, especially given that, like, there's no cultural reason why they would do that. Like, and they're also not pets. They're like a higher being than humans. It just doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. And then also because there's no like religion or culture, like why has like this nation taken over this nation, and what were they fighting about, and like what is the actual distinction between these people? And like obviously Xaden is described as having tawny skin, and I believe I've heard, this is all a bit from my end, it's a bit like rumours, but like I've heard that the author was asked about this at some sort of signing, and somebody asked like, what does that mean really, like, because that's kind of a nothing thing, and also because he's just there's no other indicators that Xaden might not be white, but she says that he's a person of colour, but obviously like, is that relevant to him being from a different place? From like, is it not relevant? Is there like a multicultural, multi-ethnic way of living in this place? Is it colorblind? Like, is there anything to do with anything? Like, again, there's no one has any character, and then also there's no like cultural backing to like be like, well, this person's from this place and that might mean this, or like this country. Like, there's not even that much to do with the country that they're in, especially because essentially the narrative takes you to a place where obviously you want to be on the side of the rebels, you don't want to be on the side of the like of Violet's mum and like the military that they're basically part of as dragon riders, but like there's not really anything that like delineates one place from another. Good example, I think, is Truth Witch by Susan Dennard, which I recently reread, because she like has characters from certain places that are like, you know, there's a port town and this means that for the people who live there, and like it's in this sort of location so it has this kind of food, and like whereas this book, I just think that like I can't tell you anything about where they are. I can't even tell you if it's meant to be sort of medieval's probably a strong word, but like, is it meant to be like a kind of classic fantasy location? Is it meant to be sort of like general Europe vibe? Is it meant to be, I think in some ways I feel like the imagined medieval place is kind of like a modern medievalized America, you know what I mean? Because obviously America's a very new country, probably not the newest, but like in terms of it didn't have like a medieval European medieval time the way that obviously like England and France and Spain and Germany, like those time periods existed, whereas obviously America in those times was an entirely different place than it is now, and like with entirely different culture with all the native people who lived there, so it's like an entirely different it's an entirely different thing. But whereas this feels like it's like American military set in some sort of slightly old, like, because they're obviously wearing boots and they're wearing like, they use swords and knives. I don't know if they use swords, but they use knives and stuff, but like that's, and they wear like, you know, like armor, but like it just feels like a really can't place where this is supposed to be, like in any sort of historically inspired imagination. I think it's all because the strongest influence is the military, so it's not even, but even then it's not like, the ranking thing doesn't seem very firm or clear, or like pictures of authority, like there's kind of like, oh, Violet's mum and like the general and some other guy, and then everybody else who's a recruit, and like, I don't know, it just doesn't really mesh. Like it felt very divergent-y, and it's like, you've arrived at this place and you've got to try out and like all that stuff, but rather than like a military where you're like taken in as like a group and trained, like, I don't know. It's just, it does, I don't understand like the setting, atmosphere, or anything really. Ari the magic, there was so much telepathy, so easily done, and I just think like, especially if it's meant to be a skill, like it's like just easily achieved, and for not really very much other than them flirting and then like fighting in the battle at the end, and the battle was incomprehensible. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the best at reading and imagining battle scenes, because I don't know, sometimes I just feel like they're hard to follow, and I'm also not that interested. Like, as long as I kind of gather that, you know, someone might have died, or like something's happening, but most of the time I'm like, what's going on? Whereas this one I was like, genuinely, what's going on? Like, I don't even understand what the point was of why they were there for a long time. And then obviously, if I can get to the end and her brother's not dead, and like, but it's a bit like, ha ha ha. And it's like, if you think your brother's dead and you've mourned him for 5 years, and then he's alive and he's like, oh, hey, it's me. Why would you write it like that? Why would you do that? I just think this whole book was like so shallow, and like the sexual tension wasn't there, and the romantic building of the relationship was shallow, and then obviously like weirdly her sister's so mean to her at the beginning, and then obviously is like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm so glad you're alive, and like, yeah, obviously those two things can exist, but it wasn't very artfully done. And then obviously fucking brother's alive at the end, and he's like, woo, welcome to the revolution. Shut up. Oh, it's so stupid. One thing I really feel like we should talk about is that obviously Violet has a disability that in some way affects her. I think at the beginning they talk about how she's in pain every day and everything hurts and she's physically weaker than everybody else. But really beyond that, nothing ever really comes of that. Like, she doesn't ever have to take a day off. It doesn't really like affect her in a big way, other than that like she avoids fighting people and obviously poisons them instead. Which I do think is meant to be like, isn't she so clever? I'm like, well, it's not gonna work if you have to go and like fight people on a battlefield. Like, if you're gonna be a spy, I suppose that works, but like, if you have to be able to like fight, which is what Dragon Rider is, then like, surely that's not gonna work. I don't know. I just think there's lots of things where it's not really thought through properly, and I don't really enjoy that. And then obviously like the disability doesn't really come in a big way, and also it's like part of her disability means that her hair goes silver on the ends, which I just don't really. I feel like that doesn't make sense to me as to why it would go silver on the ends. I feel like it would make sense if it first grows, I don't know, it grows silver and then goes brown, or like, I don't know, I just think it doesn't really make sense, but whatever. Another thing, okay, Violet is like the most privileged person there in a lot of ways, because like her mum is so high up, and like all of her siblings are dragon riders, except obviously the one who died, who isn't dead, and her dad was like a scribe, and like it's like very clear that she's like, she's an elite in this kind of setting. And obviously like her sister gives her the thing that's made of dragon scales so she doesn't get hurt, and obviously like that's kind of meant to balance out the fact that she's, I don't know, it's kind of talked about in relevance to her disability, but like in lots of ways. And then she also has special shoes because her sister knows that you're gonna fall off if you don't wear special shoes, and like I just she gets the biggest dragon and she like does really well and like is the best, and it's like, just feel like we're seeing privilege in action. Like, okay, fine, that could exist, but like, I mean, she doesn't have to be an underdog, but it does feel a bit weird. I feel like she's being sold as kind of underdog, and then it's like when you add it all up, it's like, well, actually, she just has access to resources, money, information, like, so it just doesn't really work. I think when she's like, oh my god, am I gonna make it? And all the others, is with everybody else, it's like, I assume, I've kind of filled in the gaps that like other people's children are like from poor families who this is gonna be like the greatest thing, and it's gonna really like, they're gonna be so proud their children gets to do this and all that stuff. But like, I filled that in from like other fantasies, like from like I think what's trying to be communicated in this book. But it's just, so I just find it so stupid that it's like, I'm actually really important, and I actually also have all the special things that are going to help me get through, and I'm also going to have the biggest dragon and another dragon, and I'm going to be able to stop time, and I'm going to be a telepath, and yeah, so I'm actually really special, and I'm also really, really privileged, so. It just feels like we're like, we're not reading about a rich person who's like, yeah, I'm actually succeeding because of my position in life. It's more like, she's like, I keep doing really well, and I don't know why. And it's like, you would have died before now, because you've got all the things that are protecting you. Ugh. But yeah, I think I'm okay with the fact that I read this. I was gonna say I'm happy I read it. I don't know that I'm happy, but I did. I'm kind of disappointed because I just wanted like a fun fantasy, and like this one really was not satisfying the fantasy elements. Like I need someone eating a little bit of like hard bread and cheese, you know? Like I need someone wearing a cloak, or if there's a dragon, it's got to be like an ancient dragon thing, and people got to be making potions. And I do understand that that's not this book, but I also would say people would say it's this book, you know? So, okay, I think I gave this book 2 stars because I read it, it exists. I feel like if I give it 1.5, that's really the true, in my heart rating, because it's not even dumb enough that it's carrying me through to be like, oh my god, what? This is so silly. It's not that. It's like, when I would put it down, I would completely forget about it, and then, like, I really had to sit down and be like, read this book. Especially because you spent fucking 16 quid on it. I think this is gonna go to the library soon. I don't know if he should stay here, because I feel like I have a lot of contempt, I would say. But yeah, so those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on this book. I might read the next one when it comes out, but I would maybe like get it like on like from the library on like Kindle and then return it maybe. Just because like I could read another, but like it needs to give me more. Like I need more silliness. I need more like actual attention. Otherwise, well, I'm just reading about someone who's really good, but like because of their privilege. Boring. Ugh. Well, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to my thoughts on this book. I am trying to read some other fantasy at the moment, so if you have any recommendations, I really would like that because it's just not delivering. I've also recently, I got Scribd the other day again, because I had it before, and I usually just kind of cycle through whatever I want to listen to in like a couple of months, and then I cancel it, because it doesn't have a great selection, but like, you know, you can dip in and dip out and then come back, but it is quite good for audiobooks. So I'm listening to Twisted Love by Anna Huang at the moment, but I don't really, I'm not really in the mood for it, but like I am interested in it. I'd much rather a silly fun fantasy if there could be one, but it almost feels like I can't find one. It's not available to me. But anyway, thanks so much for listening. I hope you're having a nice day. I'll see you later. Bye. Bye. Bye.